Hi, in this tutorial we'll see how we can use the SandStorm NoSQL utility for benchmarking your various NoSQL databases. So once the utility is downloaded and installed, the installation directory would look something like this, where you have few folders at the top, followed by some configuration files and executables at the bottom. So let's see how we can do the benchmarking for a NoSQL database. In this example, I'm using MongoDB for my test execution, but you can use other NoSQL databases as well. And you can refer to the SandStorm documentation for all the supported NoSQL databases. So the first step is provide the configuration. For that, you need to go to the properties folder. And here you have the sandstorm.properties. So let's go ahead and edit this. Starting from the top, you have the database host, followed by the database port on which your database would accept the connections. DB name is, of course, your database name. And then you have the credentials to connect to your database. Here you can see there is a number of threads, default being 10, and the maximum users being 50. So you can specify the number of threads with which you want to execute your workload with. Then you have the type of workload, and this is important. The load workload, this means that this particular workload will simply insert the data into your database, would work as a data loader, while the workloads A, B, C, D, E, F, and custom, they would mean that a combination of read, write, and update queries or operations would be performed on your database depending on which workload you have selected. So we'll see the usage of the workload option when we actually execute the workload. So once the configuration is done, let's see the next step. And the next step is you need to edit the run benchmark batch file. So in this batch file, this is the command which is responsible for executing the workload on your database. MongoDB, as I said, we are going to use MongoDB for this example. -w, this option specifies the workload. So in this case, since I am loading the data in an empty database, -w and load. If I were using any workload like A, B, C, D, E, F, and custom, I would have supplied the suitable keyword here. -s, this specifies the total number of transactions which I'm going to perform as a part of this workload. And -v is the concurrent threads with which I'm going to perform this. If you change the value from the batch file for this parameter -v or -s or even for -w, then this will override the changes which you have made in the properties file. So this batch file gets precedence over your config file. Now, once you have specified your benchmark, you are ready to execute the workload. Just before that, a couple of things. You need to ensure that the following two services are up and running. One is the start DB, which would allow your client or your tool to connect to the database. And second is the start agent, which is responsible for governing the execution of these concurrent threads. So with these two services up and running, we are all set to execute our workload. To run the workload from the command line, you just need to invoke the batch file. Now, you may also execute the actual command which was specified in the batch file right here on the command line. But the reason for keeping it in a separate batch file is just to avoid any erroneous conditions due to incorrect input. So the batch file you can view and ensure that it is correct with all the configuration before you execute the workload, so that any erroneous conditions arising due to incorrect input on the command line that can be avoided. So before executing our workload, let's check the state of our database. So here is my collection. If I do a view documents, I get nothing, which means it is empty. But still, let's execute a count 0, which means we are good to execute the benchmark. So here you can see the scenario starts getting loaded, and the progress kind of a progress bar is displayed on this window, which will show the status of the executing scenario. Let's go and check whether there already been some entries in the DB. Yeah, we can see there are some entries getting inserted in the DB, which means the scenario has started successfully, and the SandStorm tool, it has started populating your database. And the progress tracker, if you wish to call it, has also shown the status, and the scenario has got executed. And at the end, we have the duration for which the scenario was executed, and we get a message saying that the reports have got generated. So remember, we executed 100,000 transactions. So let's go and check the database. All right, we have 100,000 rows inserted in our database. Let's check the results. So all the results, they are stored in the result files folder. Let me go ahead and sort it by date. All right. So this is my result file folder, and let's open the TPSR first, or the transaction performance summary report. So this report shows you the min, average, max, total number of executed transactions, failed transactions, not executed, pass, etc. You have the standard deviation from the mean and the 90th percentile response time as well. Let's check another report, which is the OSTR, or overall throughput report, overall scenario throughput report. So here we have a total of 100,000 transactions. Let me expand this. Total of 100,000 transactions with an average TPS, or throughput per second, of 2598. The third report is the FTR, or the failed transaction report, but since everything passed in this case, this report would return an empty spreadsheet. So this was about how to use the SandStorm NoSQL utility for benchmarking your NoSQL databases. Should you have any queries regarding how to use this utility for other NoSQL databases like say Cassandra or HBase or any other for that matter, you can refer to the SandStorm documentation. And if you have any specific queries regarding configuration and execution of workload, you can always get back to us by writing us at SandStorm support. Thank you all very much.